asthma affects almost 3 million Australians, but researchers are saying that 80% of people don't know how to use their inhalers properly, which has a huge knock-on effect to our healthcare system. Adjunct Associate Professor Dr. Joy Lee, an allergy and respiratory medicine expert and researcher from the Alfred, joins us on the couch. Now, Dr. Lee, good morning.
Good morning.
This is a topic really close to both
Close
of
to
our
our
hearts.
chest, to our lungs.
Close to our lungs, yes.
That's clever.
Are we using our inhalers properly? I use mine pretty much every morning before I come in here. It's a bit dusty in here sometimes, just to make sure I'm going to get through the show. What should we be doing?
Yeah, so I think there's a few different steps involved with taking the inhalers, and because asthma is a chronic condition, so people will live with it for many, many years, there can often be shortcuts that people might take, or they often forget to take them completely. And we know that prevention is the best way to reduce the risk of asthma symptoms and asthma flare-ups or asthma attacks.
Yes, absolutely. I love my preventer. I keep it in my handbag because I can't go anywhere without it. And I noticed, because sometimes life gets busy and sometimes I'll miss taking it for a couple of days, and I notice my asthma worsens.
Yeah.
Does that happen if you're not taking it?
Yeah, definitely. And you're more vulnerable to things that may trigger asthma, for example, like cold air, exercise, if you contract a respiratory virus. We saw in Melbourne, in particular, the thunderstorm asthma epidemic a couple of years ago. So people who weren't taking their preventers were particularly vulnerable if they were allergic to grass pollen during that time, for example. Yeah.
How often do people get caught out? Easter is always the time where I'm suddenly like, oof, I really need it again, because the weather usually changes pretty rapidly. You start getting some very chilly mornings.
Yeah.
Is this kind of like a peak season?
Well, there's asthma seasonal because there can be peaks in any time of the year, particularly winter when there's respiratory viruses around, spring and summer when there's a lot of pollen allergens around. And if people are going on holiday, they may forget to take their preventers during that time. We see a spike in like back to school time, for example, a lot of kids going around also with the virus issue. So yeah, I think it can fluctuate and change throughout the year. But the main thing is if you wait till you've got the symptoms, it's almost like too late. You need to be on the preventer even when you don't have symptoms. And I think where people go wrong a little bit is the over-reliance as well on the blue inhaler.
Okay, so I've got a question about this one, okay, because I also love this too. I always have this as well, just in case, right? Because, you know, if you have an attack, this is what you would reach for first, but also take some of your preventer, am I right? And how should we be using and taking this? Because you do see a lot of people with the blue puffer.
Yeah, and some people I think maybe relying on the blue puffer because they get that relief when they use it straight away, but it doesn't actually do anything for the ongoing issue that's driving the asthma process, which is actually inflammation. So that's why you actually need the preventer regularly rather than just relying on the reliever to actually treat that inflammation, to try and stop you from getting in that situation in the first place where you need to rely on the blue inhaler. And actually now you can get combination inhalers where you have the reliever, like your little red one. Yeah,
a bit of both.
Yeah.
For people who are particularly lazy and bad at taking their medicine, yes, I did have both, and then those rights were revoked because I wasn't doing it properly.
It has some of that blue reliever kind of medication in it mixed with the preventer. Yeah.
So how much of an issue is this for hospitals and society in general? Because I think it's like 10% of people have asthma or so, at least.
10% of Australians.
10% of Australians. So how much?
It's about 11% actually.
Okay, wow. So if it's 11% and a lot of people aren't doing it right, how much of a flow-on effect does that have with people ending up in hospital unnecessarily, having, you know, going to see a GP unnecessarily, having to have time off, things like that?
Yeah, huge problem. I mean, and I think, you know, it affects people's work and quality of life, going to school for kids, and they end up on stronger medication like steroids, like oral steroids, prednisone, for example, to try and rescue them when they have these exacerbations. And we know that even a small amount of those oral steroids throughout your life can have cumulative risks for later on in your years, like osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease, diabetes risk. So you really want to limit people's exposure to systemic steroids and try and do that by using the preventers regularly and correctly.
Oh, I've been on those steroids. They're strong stuff. You want to avoid them if you can. Joy, it's so good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
It's not easy. It's not easy being wheezy. It is not easy.
Not easy being wheezy.